You're listening to the Jan Price Show, and today my guest is D.W. Thomas, and we are going to be talking about her new film entitled Too Late. Welcome to the show, D.W.
Hi, Jan. Great to be here. Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. Lovely to have you here. This is a fun film. It really is a fun film. So our audience knows what this film's about. Could you give us a synopsis?
Sure. It's about a lonely assistant who finally finds love and she must escape from her monster of a boss before they become his next meal. And to elaborate on that, she is in the comedy world and she becomes the assistant to Bob Devore, who is a big time show host and he's been around for a long time. And what we find out a little bit later on is her main duty is actually procuring comedians for him to eat. And once she meets Jimmy Rhodes, who is also a comedian, things become a little bit trickier because she falls for him and she doesn't obviously want any harm to come to him. And so that's the setup. And yeah, it's a fun movie and it's about her adventure.
It is a fun movie. Normally, and I don't know what genre you would put this in, whether it's comedy horror or what, what genre
We're
exactly.
actually we're calling it a horom-com.
I like that.
I
Haram
don't know if that
com.
it exists, but
Well, I think it's great to create something new and different. It is that. I mean, normally, I'm sent a lot of things from lots of different publicists, and whenever they send me a movie, I go, I'm sorry, but that's not going to appeal to my audience, because know that we're not into it's an older audience, as I keep telling them, that is not into horror films. And so when this one came, I said, oh, this looks like fun, because this isn't really a true horror film. This is fun. So you didn't write this, you had another collaborator write this, or did you
my
write some of it?
husband actually, my husband and I, we collaborated on it. So we came up with the idea together, and he was in the stand-up comedy world for a while and was good friends with Ron Lynch. And so we decided to write it around Ron. And me and my husband broke the story together, and then he went off and I let him do what he does best, which is writing the whole screenplay. And so then we went back and forth and got to the final screenplay. But it was definitely my husband who wrote all the dialogue.
It's fun. So all right, you wrote this around Ron, who is very good, and we'll talk a little bit about him. But how did the idea germinate? Where did you get this idea? Yeah, this idea, period.
Well, it is very archetypal and it is kind of like a fairy tale. You know, you have the ogre and you have the young maiden type of thing, and I guess in all fairy tales it's all about the ego and the id in a way. So what I guess what where it came from was the idea of someone feeding a ghost or feeding a demon. And we knew so many people in the comedy scene, we thought, oh, if we could set it in the comedy world, then we can pull a lot of really talented people together. And it really just came out of that, because what a better place for a monster to go, you know, unseen is in comedy, where people just come and go, as he says in the movie. And yeah, and it really came around that. And Ron Lynch actually has a variety show, and so we knew that he could really nail that character, and he had a lot of experience in that world. So that started coming into it. And it really, as they say it, it's kind of cliched, is it sort of started writing itself, you know, once you had the idea, and it snowball effect.
Amazing. So is that how you attracted Fred Armisen and I don't know how to say her last name, but Mary Lynn
Mary
Rajskub?
Lynn
Rajskub. Okay, so
Rice Cub.
Rajskub.
Yeah.
So they're both well known in the world of entertainment. How did you attract both of them to this project?
So that was also through Ron, and we kind of went to Ron and we were like, we have this great role for you, and if you're interested in it, you know. And so he read it and he loved it, and then later on we were kind of looking for a few names that we could maybe pulled together in a few of the smaller roles. And Ron suggested I think he's the one who suggested Fred Armisen, and he was also a great friend with Lynn Rajskub, and so he approached them and sent them the script, and they were both thrilled. They liked the script, and so they came on, which was amazing. We were all kind of like, oh, oh wow. So the film kind of became a bigger piece at that point. Before it was much smaller, so it was pretty exciting.
That is exciting because they're both wonderful comedians and an actor also. So that
Yeah.
yeah, what a great that you were able to get them. Did that help you with the financing when you had two well-known names attached to the project?
It definitely helped with got the financing through friends and family, and so it was uh, a really we kept it kind of small, and it did actually get bigger and bigger once the bigger names came involved. I think our budget was it doubled after that, which was like, oh my gosh. Luckily, we were able to find more resources and pull it together, and so the names didn't weren't yeah, I guess they weren't the driving force in actually getting the budget. So we were able to find it through other means, but it helped. I mean, it helped them want to put more money in, I guess, our investors. So in that right, it did.
Good and everything. So you have a lot of different comedians in this, obviously. So how did you find the different comedians that you have in the film?
That was all through my husband Tom's, because he was in the stand-up scene. He just had a list of comedians, and he gave me the list, and he said, "Okay, you get to choose your favorite ones." And I pretty much, yeah, I got like the cream of the crop, and I was like, "Oh wow." And they were all so good, so it was very hard to choose, but we really wanted to show the range of comedy, and so that's why we have, like alternative comics, and then we have some variety show type of comics who do characters and do acts, and then jugglers, and so we really got that range. And yeah, and so it was really through Tom.
That's fortunate too. So you were able to
Yeah.
again, have some really interesting comedians. Many of them we have not seen, and that are playing the comedy club circuit. So it gives them a showcase also for us to see them. So let's talk about the
Absolutely, yeah.
casting. I mean, you wrote this around Ron Lynch. So let the audience know a little bit about him, because when you see him in the film, you'll go, "Oh, yes, I've seen him in many other things." So talk a little bit about him and again, your husband knew him through the comedy circuit.
Yeah, so he has a show called The Tomorrow Show, and he's been doing that for, gosh, 20, 30 years. And Ron Lynch, you'd recognize his voice probably more so because he was on Bob's Burgers, and he home videos, and he's done a lot of character work, like smaller roles in Portlandia and Community, or not Community, Corporate. And so he's been around for a really long time. And uh, yeah, we first actually approached him for a short film about, gosh, I guess like 5 years ago now, and that was like the big ask. We're like, oh my gosh, we know Ron Lynch, and we don't know him that well, but maybe, maybe he'll do this little short film for us, and who knows. And so he was excited about the film, and he did the film no problem at all, and he was so easy to work with and so down to earth. So when the feature came along, we were like, okay, we want to highlight Ron, because Ron is terrific. He's been around for such a long time, and he he really I mean, he's just an icon in like the stand-up world and in comedy in LA. So that was really what we wanted to do. And Ron is terrific. I mean, Ron plays this monster who has two sides, which in entertainment a lot of creatives do, a lot of people, especially who are on stage, and then they have their behind the scenes persona. And so he really was able to pull those two sides out, and it was a lot of fun working with him on that.
Well, he's good in this. He is very good in this too, and he plays it, and it's not over the top. this could have been a very
Mm-hmm.
over the top role, I think, and yet he plays it in just the right tone. I felt it was just the right tone.
He
So
has a vulnerability that I really liked, that
yes.
he makes you feel a little sorry for him. And
Mm-hmm.
I think you rarely see monsters that have more of a dimension, where it's kind of like, okay, we get it. Like, this is your food source, you know. Like, it's a tough call. So he played that so well, and I think he loved being in the monster outfit more than anything. Like, he came to set sort of glowing, like, oh, do I get to be put into the monster costume today?
That's fun. That's fun. And the lead, Alyssa Limperis, is that how you say her name?
Mm-hmm. That's right.
I don't have not
She
seen her in anything before, and she's wonderful in this. She's really stunningly beautiful too. So how
she
did you?
oh my gosh,
Go
she
ahead.
is amazing.
So tell me about her and her.
She came in, yeah.
Okay.
She auditioned for a different role, actually, and when she came in, immediately we were like, "Oh my gosh, this is our Violet," because she was pretty much Violet at the end of the movie, where she had that confidence and she understood the comedy world. And as long as she could become the Violet at the beginning of the movie, which is the more repressed and more put upon Violet, then we knew she could nail it. And even though she didn't have a lot of experience in features, she actually has a pretty big following on Instagram. She does a lot of front face comedy, and she's hilarious, and she has a very different way of acting in there. And so it was exciting to see her change and to see her show all of the emotions that we don't really see on her front face comedy side. And she yeah, we were just so impressed with her, and she does look amazing on film. And there was such good chemistry between her and Jimmy, or Will Weldon, that yeah, we were really happy with how that all turned out.
It's yeah. She is she's definitely going to be an actress that everybody should be looking for because you really can't keep your eyes off of her in this film. She's got that quality that is kind of rare, and it's it's the indefinable quality, and she does have that. There's something about her that's just really very appealing, and again, she's one to look out for. Everybody, write her name down, Alyssa Limperis.
Yeah, she's also a terrific person. Yeah, Lynn
I have
Paris.
Lynn Paris. That's great. So, and then you got Will Weldon, and you're right. The chemistry between the two of them is very palpable. So, talk a little bit about him and how they ended up working so well together.
Which we actually found out later, they actually have the same manager. And when we brought them both in for callbacks, they were able to audition together before before the callback.
Okay.
So not to say that that is what gave them the chemistry that we saw during the audition, because I think that Will Weldon, he is a stand-up comedian by trade, and he's getting more into acting, and he's a terrific actor. But my husband, he knew him from stand-up, and so he really wanted to bring in someone who does stand-up for Jimmy. And we loved Will from the beginning. You know, I wanted him before we even brought him in for the audition. And luckily, when we put him with Alyssa, they just had so much chemistry, and you could tell that Will really respected Alyssa as a comedian and as, you know, a person. And maybe he was even a little afraid of her, I don't know, but he really respected her. And I think that's what really helps with this role, because Violet, Alyssa's character, has to kind of become her own person, and it's not her boyfriend, it's not the man who helps her along. It's really her who finds her way. And I thought that was important. So I thought, yeah, he was perfect.
He really is. Yeah, he really is, and as I said, they have great on-screen chemistry. So this is your first feature that you have directed. Is that correct? You've done a lot of things, mostly editing. Is that your love? You edit? Did you edit this film too?
I did.
You did, okay. So how was it directing your first feature-length film? Because you've directed other things, but smaller, on the smaller
Yeah, this
uh, stage. So how is
it
it?
it was really exciting. It I I've worked so long behind the scenes that I kind of knew what I wanted to get. So as an editor, I kind of knew the shots that I wanted, and I knew how to sort of cut it in my head, but I tried to pull back from that while I was directing. And uh yeah, and just throw myself into it. And I gosh, it was so much fun. And you know, thinking back on it, I think it went by so quickly, and every day was a new adventure and excitement. And when challenges came up, it was kind of like a chance to, you know, have a solution and come up with a fun way to fix things. And yeah, it was great to be able to be in control of how the actors were acting, because also as an editor, you have no say in that, and sometimes you'll be editing something and really wish that an actor went a different direction with something, and it might have made the whole story a little bit more complex. And so being able to be the person that says, okay, why don't we try this or that, was so exciting. And yeah, I hope to keep doing it.
I was gonna say, do you have another project you're working on right now?
Yeah, we have a couple of screenplays. I think the one that I want to focus on is a little bit similar but different. It follows another female character, and it's an adventure fantasy, kind of psychological, or sorry, not psychological, like a um, more of a it has a little supernatural, and it's along the same tone. It's not that gore horror, because I think what I really love was when growing up, you know, I loved Gremlins, and I loved American Werewolf in London, and kind of the horror films that were a lot more uh, fun. And so that's what I want to keep on doing in adventures. And
Was gonna say, who inspires you? What director do you look up to? Who inspires you?
gosh, there are many. I think I being a kid of the 80s, I was really inspired by Joe Dante and, you know, Steven Spielberg, and all of the kind of young directors that came out and started doing something a little different. I I don't actually get to watch as many movies as I would like to, because I'm focused so much on editing and working in front of a screen, that as soon as
Right.
I'm done with that, I kind of want to go and read, and so I get really into reading and such. But I definitely always love going back to those old favorites. And of course, there are so many talented directors out there now, female directors, and um, yeah, there's a lot to look up to, I think, happening right now in the world.
Yes, there are, and more female directors are getting their due finally. So
Yeah.
you're kind of entering in this, although you've been in the industry for a while, but as far as moving into the directorial arena, you are actually coming into it at a good time because you know
Yeah,
everything that's
it's
going on in the industry right now, that women are finally getting their due in this industry that for so long did not recognize.
yeah. It's interesting because I, as an editor, I don't think I ever edited one female director's like a feature or a short. They were all men, which isn't a problem, but it is kind of I love to see the different perspective. And you really only get that when you have the lead, the head, give that perspective, you know.
And it's interesting. Well, Jenkins obviously led the way. Finally, they have a woman director on a superhero film. And I guess
Yes.
now Chloe Zhao is going to be directing, I think, a Marvel movie. I think I read that.
Yeah, I'm excited to see that one. Yeah.
Yeah, would be interesting since, Nomadland was such a sort of simple, film, to go from that, where you're working with mostly non-actors, to then helming a superhero film is quite a bridge to get, so it's kind of going to be interesting to see what she does with that for sure. Sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
What, for you, what was the most difficult part of filming this?
Probably, I would say the most difficult part was, I guess, the time limit. We only had 15 days to shoot, and yeah, and if you think about the the amount of locations we had, usually when they say, "Oh, make a small film, make a low budget film, and do just two locations," do one location, and of course we finished the script and we were like, well, there's a few more locations than that. But so that was a huge challenge. And then I think, uh let's see, I think having the support from the whole team. Sometimes I didn't always feel as supported, and as a first time director, I think sometimes people go, oh, well, you're a first time director, so you should do this, and it's like, well, you should probably also back off and let me make my own mistakes, which is great. It's
Good
great to
girl.
have yeah, yeah. So I think that was a really good challenge, and it also made me find my voice and like really take control, because that is what you have to do. And there's always people who are going to tell you their idea, their opinion, and it's just an opinion, you know.
Exactly, exactly. So you did find a lot of people trying to contribute and tell you how to do
Yeah,
things?
most of the people were pretty on board, and it was just a couple, and in the end, it all turned out great, So I think having other voices is important as well, because then you can really defend yourself, and if it doesn't work, then you can go, oh, you know what, it doesn't work, like, okay, I can hear your critique, and I can find, you know a middle ground. And so, yeah, not to say that, like, oh, no one should ever say anything against a director, because I think
Right.
other voices are important.
Yeah, I mean, and again, this is your first time, so I'm sure people had, and it's true of anything when you're doing a collaboration, a creative collaboration, there's many ideas that come about in that, but ultimately, as the director, it's your voice and it's what you want to be seen on the screen. But it's helpful to have other people that can help with that process too, I would think. It takes a
Absolutely.
village, as they say. It definitely takes a village.
It does, it really does.
So what was it like working with your husband? Because he wrote it. Once he wrote it, did he kind of just walk away from it and just let you hold the reins, or was he still actively involved in the process?
For this, after the screenplay was written, and then once we started shooting for principal photography, he was working the whole time, and so he actually only came to set one or two times, and he really backed off. He was really amazing about it, because I know with a writer, a screenwriter especially, you can become very attached and sensitive about your words, and make you want to make sure that your words are being said. And so I think he was really amazing. He was really just pulled back. He was like, "All right, I trust you, and I know you're going to do a great job, and just have fun, and you know do whatever you feel you need to do." And then during the editing phase, I because it I was editing it, and I probably wouldn't want to. I ended up editing it mainly because of financial reasons, because we just didn't have it in the budget, and so it was a lot cheaper to have me do that. And also, um I that was my world, so I knew how to
Right.
edit, and that was something that I could bring to the table. But editing your own work is a lot more complicated than or difficult than editing somebody else's, because you don't have that fresh eye. And once you're in the edit room, you get it, and when you're a director, you get attached to certain scenes because of maybe how long it took to shoot. You're like, oh, that was a really hard scene, so we have to put that in. But as an editor, you're like, that scene, it sucks, it might have been really hard, but it doesn't work. And I think that you have to be able to separate yourself like that. And so Tom, he was really helpful in that regard. Once I did the rough cut, he came in and we were able to go, oh, you know what, I don't think that works. And I was like, you know what, you're right. Thank you for for giving me that perspective, because I was sort of losing it. I was sort of more attached to how long it took to do, or how what the response of the crew were to it at the time, you know. So he was so helpful in that. And then he was involved throughout the whole post production, and then once we had a composer and the sound design and the color correction, and since we've gone through distribution, and then this is a whole other
Well, I'm so
arena
sorry.
that,
Our time is up, but I want people to know where
oh
they
yeah,
can find Too Late. Where can people
so
find the
Too
movie?
Late will be, yeah, it'll be coming out June 25th theatrically and on demand. You can also pre-buy it on iTunes. I want to say May 25th or May 28th. And if you want to find more information, www.toolatethemovie.com, or you can find us on Instagram at Too Late the Movie and Twitter at Too Late the Movie.
Great, great. Thank you so much, DW. I wish you much success with Too Late. Everybody go seek it out. It's fun. If you have missed any of the Jan Price shows all about movies, they are all archived on my website, thejanpriceshow.com. They are also on the iHeart Podcast Network, Spotify, Google Play, wherever you listen to your favorite podcast. Also, you can follow us on Twitter and Instagram at thejanpriceshow.com. Thank you all for listening.